welcome for our last agenda item for today. Item 4, Report of the Pan-European Commission on Health and Sustainable Development, presentation of recommendations and conclusions. The relevant documents can be seen on the slide. Here you see the slide. This is a dedicated session for the presentation of the final deliverables of the Pan-European Commission on Health and Sustainable Development to Member States. As you know, the final report of the Commission was only published last Friday. I suppose that many of our delegates will not have had time yet to digest the entire report and its recommendations. Therefore, the introductions and explanations that we will receive from the Commission's chair and some of the commissioners will be very useful. In that sense, I imagine that our discussion may rather focus on how to take this report and its recommendations forward and how to operationalize some of them. I would now like to welcome Professor Maria Monti, the chair of the Pan-European Commission, and hand him the floor for introducing us into the report. Professor Monti, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Director General Dr. Tedros, Regional Director Dr. Kluge, President of RC71 Manastir Liu, Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, my dear fellow commissioners, ladies and gentlemen. I have the honor today of presenting to you the findings and the recommendations, as it has been announced, of the Pan-European Commission on Health and Sustainable Development. Actually, our report is entitled Drawing Light from the Pandemic, a new strategy for health and sustainable development. And I'm also delighted to add that there is a strong and extensive supporting evidence for our findings and for our recommendations. This is a review of the evidence edited by Professor Martin McKee, who will be taking the floor shortly. As this decade dawned, ladies and gentlemen, the world faced an unsolicited and monumental stress test, the COVID-19 pandemic. And as events have unfolded in the months since, we can be in no doubt that our political, economic, and social systems have failed catastrophically to manage the defining crisis of our time. There has been a tragic loss of life and a disastrous impact on livelihoods. We cannot accept the consequences of our failings during this pandemic without trying to identify and tackle their causes. From this darkness, we must indeed attempt to draw light. This is the reason that the Pan-European Commission on Health and Sustainable Development was convened and why we present our recommendations to you today. Leading experts from the fields of politics, life science, economy, health and social care, business and finance have reached consensus on the need for two novel approaches to move forward. Firstly, we must fully recognize the interconnections between the health of humans, animals, plants, and the planet, environment, biodiversity, and climate above all. And secondly, the resulting One Health policy that we propose must in turn be intimately integrated in a wider and coherent policy framework comprising economic and financial, technological, social, and international policies. Today, my fellow commissioners and I share the culmination of a year of review and research, discussions and deliberations. And I want to note with really enormous appreciation for all my colleagues that moving from very different positions, professional positions, political positions, even philosophical positions. And after all, the pan-European region is so wide and so diverse. We have been able to arrive at a report and recommendations adopted unanimously, ladies and gentlemen. And I find this very remarkable, and I owe it to the seriousness, the commitment, and the flexibility of all my colleagues that we arrived at this unanimous result without meeting even once personally, always online. We believe that the 7 objectives and related recommendations we have set down in our report provide clarity, we hope so, a light by which we can reset the path to equitable, sustainable development. We propose that countries establish One Health strategies so that the linkages and risks related to the interface of human, animal, and environmental health can be addressed in a coordinated way. We call on countries to tackle deep-rooted inequalities, identify those who live in difficult circumstances, and develop policies to give them more security. We ask for the risks and returns around innovation and development to be shared between the private and public sectors. We seek greater investment in health systems, particularly primary and mental health care, as well as in the health workforce. We underline that health surveillance, early warning systems, and crisis response must be strengthened. We suggest improving global governance for health through the creation of a global health and finance board at the G20, a pandemic treaty for joint decision-making, and a global pandemic vaccine policy. We advocate for the establishment of a pan-European Health Threats Council and a network for disease control to maintain political commitment and take decisive action when threats arise. These are some of the recommendations you will find in the report. It remains for me to thank each and every commissioner for their commitment and collaboration, expertise, and I thank those of them who have been kindly available to intervene at this important occasion today, to recognize the invaluable guidance and support of Professor Martin McKee and Professor Elias Mosialos, who brought scientific rigor to this process and coordinated the scientific review. And I wish also to thank Special Advisor to the Chair, Professor Alexandra Torbica, who is here with me today at Bocconi. Above all, I want to acknowledge that this Commission and its report would not have been possible without the inspiration and enterprise of WHO Regional Director for Europe, Dr. Hans Kluge. Dear Hans, I heard you speak words this morning about the Commission and myself, which no doubt concerning myself were largely exaggerated. I will reciprocate your sense of gratitude and of appreciation by saying that you really had a great vision to ask us to do something rather original, that is linking all these disciplines and come to operational proposals with a vision that takes health at its center, but goes very well beyond health. And I believe that our intense activity this year, much more intensive than all of us believed, I must say, may have rewarded you, WHO, the member states, and the world of health generally for your inspiration. The world walked into the COVID-19 crisis lacking foresight, unwilling and unable to reach consensus on current pressing challenges. Countries were stuck, looking on their doorsteps, seeking to solve transnational problems with outdated national solutions. Future generations will not thank us for our short-sightedness. We need a new vision. We present to you a bold new strategy for health and sustainable development in the light of pandemics. Thank you very much, and it is now my pleasure